Extreme 3D Hummingbird and Rose Acrylic Nailer Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish. Hi everyone! In today's video I'm going to be showing you an extreme 3D hummingbird. So it's a hummingbird that's floating, or what looks like he's floating or flying above the nail, with a really ornate little rose underneath it, and then just some rhinestones. It's very decorative looking. I really like it. My grandmother loves hummingbirds, and I usually give her something hummingbird themed for her birthday and Christmas and everything. So I always kind of have a hummingbird, I don't know, thought in my head for making things. So that's where this came from. I hope you guys like it, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well. So to begin with, I'm going to be showing you this little rhinestone set that I got from BeautyBigBang. Unfortunately, it did kind of open up a little bit in the mail and it leaked, so that was a pretty decent sized mess to deal with. But the rhinestones themselves in there, it's kind of a nice little thing, especially if you don't want to commit to a whole bunch of rhinestones or different things, but you want to kind of expand your collection, because it has a whole variety of different things. And I know that there's different color schemes. So the one I got was all kind of like nude tones, or I don't know, just kind of a plainer set, but they had ones that had more color to them. And there's caviar beads in there, different sizes of rhinestones. They have pointy bottom rhinestones and bigger rhinestones, and then little gold framey things. There's really a lot in there. You don't get much of anything, but you get a big variety. So it's kind of a cool little set if that's something that you are looking for. So some of them that I got are kind of like that blush tone, or that I don't know, mauve-y blush tone. And then some of them are clear for the rhinestones. And they all kind of go together. So if you're making a set of something and you need like a whole bunch of things that just kind of go together, if you know that you have something that you're planning for an event, it's kind of a good little thing to pick up, because yeah, they've just got all these different things that you can then use that go together. It's all pre-done for you, all picked out. So then to start the actual nail, I'm going to begin with an overlay of a berry color acrylic. So this is actually one of my absolute favorite color acrylics for backgrounds. I just love this. It's a very rich berry color. And so it looks really good with the greens of the hummingbird. So I'd really go with something for a background color that contrasts with the greens. So something that's a little bit of a red tone. So some kind of pink or berry or coral color is kind of what I would stick with. Then encase the nail with a layer of clear acrylic, just to make sure that it is nice and strong and has a beautiful apex on it. And this just always helps things out. So just make sure that your layer of clear acrylic is on there. That is always something that I do, because it really does improve the structure of the nail. And then I'm going to be filing it into shape with my E-file. I'm using a fairly coarse bit in the beginning just to remove any bulk. And I'm going to be switching to a much finer bit just to refine the surface texture, make sure it is really nice and smooth. On this particular nail, there isn't actually that much sculpting on it, so that step isn't nearly as important as it would be sometimes. But if you always do that, it's just a good habit to get into in case you do have a nail that has a lot of sculpting or painting directly on top of the acrylic, because it's just going to make that process go so much easier. Now, on a nail form backing with a really pretty grass green kind of acrylic, I'm going to be making my hummingbird. So I'm just doing all of these little pieces that are then going to get put together later and enhanced upon. So I need a little base piece for the body, which is the first one that I made, which I know at this point is like, what the heck does that look like? It's kind of a weird shape, but you got head, body, and then just a little base of the tail. The second piece I made, that one that's almost triangular, that one is going to actually be the tail. And then you're going to need two that are wings. So here's the first wing. So those ones are kind of like, they've got a straight line, and then they kind of triangle down, but that third point of the triangle you just round off, if that makes sense, hopefully. And like I said, you do need two of these, so make sure that you do make a second wing, and try to make them close together on your nail form backing so that you can get them as close to the same size as possible. If they're right next to each other, hopefully you aren't going to have too much difficulty matching them. You can get them pretty close. So now, taking off your piece of your hummingbird body base, glue a piece of wire out of his head for his beak. So just take a piece of wire and glue that straight out of his head. And then you're going to be thickening up his body and adding more shape to it with more of the same green acrylic. All of the acrylic that I used on him is the same grass green, and all the rest of the color comes from paint later on. So I'm just going to take and just add a layer of acrylic over the top of the hummingbird in general, just a nice smooth layer just to kind of round him out. But then as that is setting, I'm just going to gently poke in around his neck just to give some definition between his head and his neck. That's pretty much all of the detail sculpting that happens on his body, is just that little neck indent. Then with nail glue, you're going to be gluing his wings in place. So pick up one wing and glue that down, and then pick up the other wing and glue that down. And as you're doing these, really look at what you're doing to make sure that they are at the same angle and they're going at the same direction, and they go the same, because the birds, when they flap their wings, they flap them in unison. So you want to try to get them as symmetrical from side to side as you can. As you can see, my nail glue is fighting me this whole process, which seems to be about par for the course. If you do glue your wings in place and you look at them, you're like, ooh, those are not right. You can pretty easily at this point just pop them off and then re-glue them if that does need to happen. And they're not very securely attached right now. This is a temporary hold with the nail glue, which I'm still struggling with. You're also going to need to glue that little tail piece that you made to the end of your hummingbird. Now, after you think everything is in the right spot, I know the little bird anatomy can be a little bit tricky, a little bit troublesome. You're going to want to secure your wings in place with some more of that green acrylic. So just take a couple more beads of green acrylic and really attach them to your hummingbird body. And make sure that they aren't going anywhere now, because you don't want them to pop off once you have them in the right spot. That would be very disappointing, especially if it took you a couple tries to get them in the right spot. Then to have them pop off on you, that would be quite upsetting. Same thing with his tail. Make sure that his tail is properly attached with some more of that green acrylic, both the underside and the top of it. All of these little pieces, you really need to make sure that they're attached, because if they get bumped, you don't want them to just break off. I'm now adding just a little bit more acrylic over my wings in general, just to add some strength to them. As you can see, they were very, very thin. So I just want them to be a little bit stronger than they were. And then I'm going to take some brown one-step gel polish, and I'm going to be painting his beak. The reason I used one step is because I didn't want it to just have another layer of top coat. Then in the nail, this is a part of that I actually missed recording, but you need to make a hole in your nail, just very in the center, and then you're going to glue the wire of your hummingbird into the hole, so that's why he sticks straight up. He just glue that wire into the hole. And then you're going to need to make your rose. So this part I used the same berry color as the background of the nail, and then a pink. So the pink is going to be the top of the petals, and that berry is just going to kind of fade into the base of the nail. So for the first one, create a fairly long strip of acrylic for your petal. And then when it's ready, when it starts to turn matte and you can pick it up with your brush, which I'm always a little bit hasty. I always try to pick it up too soon. But once you can pick it up, you're going to want to pick it up, and then you're going to wrap it around your hummingbird base, or around the little base of your hummingbird's wire. So just kind of grab it with your brush and just sort of twist it around, and then press it in. Make sure you press it in really tight at the bottom of it, but sort of fan it out at the top of it, so it looks like your hummingbird is drinking the nectar. So that's how you kind of do that. I know that it's a weird process, and if you aren't used to making roses and petals like this, it may take you a couple tries to get that first one to look right and make sure that it does look like it's opening up, but it's tight at the bottom and it kind of opens up at the top. Then you're going to need to be making some more petals, same process of the light pink and the berry color. When you do grab these beads, you want to make sure that you're grabbing ones that are fairly small. That first one actually needs to be the largest, and then they get progressively smaller as they go out, which is kind of funny to think about, because you'd think the outside petals are the largest, but because that one does wrap all the way around like that, that's why it needs to be a little bit bigger. And then these next ones just kind of can get smaller and smaller. So here's the next row. So I did that center one, and then I did 2, and then I did a row of 3. Just kind of fit those in underneath there with your petals. When you do get the bead of acrylic for your petals, make sure that you dip into the light pink color first, or whatever your lighter shade of acrylic is, and then into the darker color, not the other way around. If you try to grab the darker color first, you're going to just end up with a solid color, because the lighter color will pick up the pigment from the darker bead that's already there. So now I've got my whole rows done, like I said I did, or that single one in the center, and then 2, and then 3. And there, I didn't really leave much of a gap around the bottom of it. That last row really finishes it off. So then with green paint, green, blue, a couple shades of green actually, light green, dark green, blue, black, white, I'm going to be painting my hummingbird. So I started out with the dark green color, and I'm going to be adding some of the feather texture on him. So I added some details on his wings, and then I'm going to kind of add some blue on the throat area and on the cheeks. This is a really bright blue, a really pretty blue. If you wanted to, you could actually just take your hummingbird and apply a layer of no wipe top coat over him, and then do a duochrome color on him and not do much of the other detail, but make him duochrome. That would look gorgeous, because a lot of hummingbirds do have that iridescent color, light catching effect on them. So you could definitely do that instead. That would be something that would be fun. I didn't want to, because I don't want to add any more thickness to my hummingbird, and a no wipe top coat is going to add a little bit more. It has some volume to it, so it's going to add some thickness on him. But if you didn't want to do all the hand painting, that would definitely be an alternative that you could try instead. So then after I have that, I did a lot of highlighting on him with the brighter shade of green. I wanted him to be bright and sunny looking, like he's in the sunshine, and I added some of that bright green around his eye area on his head, and then pretty much over his entire body. And with black, then you're going to need to add his eye on each side. And then with just a little bit of white, add a little highlight in each eye, just like that. So then I'm going to be taking a very light shade of pink or white, depending on, mine was a very light shade of pink, but depending on how light your rose is, you may just want to go with white, and just adding a very thin line around the outside of each petal just to brighten those up and make them a little bit easier to see. Just kind of defining the very, very edge. You don't want to add too much of this color on there, just a very hint of it. Just going right around just the edges of each petal. And that is actually going to be it for the hand painting on this design. The rest of it is going to be adding the rhinestones. So I started out with one of those frames that I mentioned that I got in that set, and I'm going to be placing some rhinestones inside of it. So I did one larger one, and then I added some caviar beads in around that one single rhinestone. Since the frame I had was an oval and the rhinestone was a circle, I wanted to fill in above and below it just so that there wasn't those gaps of the nail showing. And I did kind of fight my caviar beads for a while to get them in there. After I have that in place, I cured it. Then I'm going to be attaching a little row of rhinestones around the outside of the frame on one side. So I did 4 smaller rhinestones and one that was a little bit larger around the one side of the frame. Cure that and then do it the same way on the other side, 1 larger one and then 2 smaller ones. Like I said, this set comes with a whole bunch of different things. There aren't really that many of them. There's not a huge variety, or a huge amount, but there's a huge variety. Switch up what I said. After that's cured, then I'm going to be adding just a couple more along the bottom of the nail. There was one that had kind of a pointed shape, which worked out really well with the almond shape of this nail. So I added that one, or a teardrop shape frame. That's what I meant. And a couple more rhinestones. Apply a layer of gel sealer over the entire background to make sure that everything is really, I just kind of applied it over all the rhinestones and everything. And then a little bit of matte top coat on the rose to seal in the acrylic paint. And then a full layer of matte top coat over the hummingbird just to make sure that all of his paint is sealed in and he's going to be nice and sturdy the whole time. So that is it. Like I said, I absolutely love this nail. I actually showed it to my grandmother right away and she goes, "Oh, I want that as an ornament." I don't know exactly an ornament for what, but she liked it. So I like it too. I hope you guys like it as well. And don't forget to share recreations with me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to see them. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.